Hello, it's stage 9 of the Tour today, a stage which suddenly looms much larger in the overall scheme of the race than it did 24 hours ago. The reason is stage 8. On paper, yesterday was a leg loosener through the mountains of the Vosges, but by the final climb of the day, Lance Armstrong was under attack, and more surprisingly, on his own.
8 days into the Tour, here goes Alexander Vinokourov now. He really has brought this Tour to life. And here he goes again, Alexander Vinokourov. He knows now he's got Armstrong isolated. And this is Anders Klöden. Well, who would have expected that? This man hasn't shown any form all year. Now he's attacking Armstrong. What a strange day this has been. Lance Armstrong, no teammates around him. I don't think this has ever happened to Lance since he started winning the Tour in 1999. He's on his own now. Hats off to the young Dutchman. He's made Klöden lead all the way up this home straight, but he's gritting his teeth now. The line is desperately close. He's on the side of Klöden. Hit the line. I can't split it. They are so close, I can't split it. The closest finish in the history of the Tour de France. The sprint for third place taken out predictably there by Valverde. Lance Armstrong in the group. But you know, today, I really think Armstrong has shown us he is vulnerable.
That was interesting. A little too interesting, but I don't know. Clearly the team was not really on today, and I didn't feel very good either, and the other teams did feel good. So situations like that, it'd be hard to win the Tour day in and day out. So we have to evaluate where we are and make some adjustments.
At the top of the standings, the adjustments have been made for him. His chief domestique, George Hincapie, who was in second place, disappears off the radar to be replaced by Jens Voigt. Alexander Vinokourov is third, Ivan Basso up to fifth, and Jan Ullrich now sixth. The one attacker Armstrong didn't chase down yesterday, Ullrich's teammate Andreas Klöden, has ridden himself up into 9th place. Now with us as ever is Chris Boardman, and Chris, having sensed weakness in Armstrong's protection yesterday, presumably Klöden, Ullrich, Vinokourov and the rest of them are going to try it again today.
Yeah, the big difficulty today is there's an awful lot of difficult obstacles to overcome, but it's 60k to go. It's going to make it difficult as well, but I think there's going to be a lot of people who've scented blood, as it were, and they're going to be trying to exploit any weakness that we saw yesterday. 60
kilometres, as you say, from the top of the last summit, so there's time to recover and get back any lost time on that run-in. But how strong do you think Armstrong's team actually is?
I think they'll do better than yesterday. I think they'll be a little bit more conservative. They won't go after all the smaller people that they perhaps might have done. They're going to concentrate on the big names, and then in the run-in, well, it's probably going to be for them to try and mop up and do as much damage control as they can.
All right, plenty of action to get in, so let's crack on with today's stage. And there's today's battleground, 177 kilometres from Gérardmer to Mulhouse, with 6 climbs. The major ones being La Grand Ballon, over 1,300 metres at the summit, and the Ballon d'Alsace. Now, bad news for Team Mobile early in stage 9 when Jan Ullrich came off on the first descent of the day and had to be paced back into the race by 4 teammates. Even worse news for David Zabriskie, the first yellow jersey of this year's race, finally succumbing to the injuries he sustained in that crash during the team time trial on stage 4. Now, Michael Rasmussen, who started in the King of the Mountains jersey this morning, was the first man over Le Grand Ballon on its Tour Centenary, so he'll still lead that competition tonight. The first blow landed in the race overall today, though, was Jens Voigt nicking a couple of seconds for third place at an intermediate sprint. He started a minute behind Lance Armstrong this morning, so that lead is now down to 58 seconds. Well, as we join the race, Rasmussen is out on his own at the front of this race. 4 minutes 20 behind him are Christophe Moreau and Jens Voigt. Second place, as I said this morning. So as things stand, he is the leader out on the road because Lance Armstrong's group is another 5 minutes back. Let's get on to the slopes of the Ballon d'Alsace now with Paul Sherwin and Phil Liggett.
Alsace. This is the climb now of the Ballon d'Alsace, and this is the lone lead, and what a ride he has done today. I think he got away after 2 kilometres this morning. He's now some 60 kilometres from the finish. He's won every mountain. Riders have come and paid him a visit. He sent them back to the bunch. He's on his own, and look at the crowd now, just trying to catch a glimpse of Michael Rasmussen.
Phil, this is an unbelievable crowd. They have turned out here to see the Ballon d'Alsace. This is not the highest climb in the Vosges, but it's the southernmost climb in the Vosges Mountains. And this man has absolutely lit the race on fire. A little bit of air to breathe as they move behind the barriers here, but he has got every point this afternoon on every mountain pass. He is laying down the foundations here for a crack at winning the King of the Mountains classification.
He is top to the Ballon d'Alsace, 56 kilometers to go now, as the field behind is splitting up in the chase back. But the main field is still riding tempo here as the boys in the breakaway look to be dropping back. Lance Armstrong has kept an iron grip with his team on the field today, and the big men, well, they haven't played a card yet. This is a move by Lance to shift his yellow jersey onto the shoulders of number 28, Jens Voigt. It may be onto the shoulders of Michael Rasmussen. We won't know that until we get the time gaps at the finish, if they survive.
If they survive. Well, if Michael Rasmussen, Phil, wants to take the lead away from Jens Voigt, he's going to have to finish in front of him by 6 minutes and 5 seconds. And I think that's a tall order, because these guys are going to recuperate on the descent.
In theory.
And it's still a long way to go to the finish. It's 56 kilometers from the top of the climb.
They're currently 4:22 behind the leader, these two riders. It didn't, I'm afraid Dario Cioni didn't stay with them too long. They're now about to enter this corridor of people here as they ride up towards the summit. The camper vans down there. It must have been a good night last night on the Ballon d'Alsace, enjoying a beer in the middle of nowhere on what would have been a beautiful evening as well. And all nationalities just enjoying the atmosphere which only the Tour de France can engender.
Christophe Moreau riding superbly there, but the tempo here being set by the lieutenants of Lance Armstrong. Hincapie just there in front of him. Behind him you can see Paolo Salvadelli. The faithful lieutenant here on the front is Chechu Rubiera, followed by Beltran. So behind him he's still got two very strong men in hand, Jaroslav Popovic and Paolo Salvadelli.
And if you think it's easy up there, look at the back here. Riders slowly slipping out of our picture under severe pressure as they continue the climb. Just past Thierry Marichal there was Cofidis getting into the riders who have not yet quite cracked. Here comes Stewie O'Grady. This is all looking very tough at the back, and yet they're just staying calm and collected. Giovanni Lombardi is there. Look at the gaps now.
The gaps are opening. I also quickly caught a sight there of Luke Roberts, the Australian rider on Team CSC. He's also going out of the back. He was brought into this Tour de France team here to be a member of the team time trial. Further up, Kurt Arvidsson is going out. See, Team CSC, Phil, for a team that want to challenge here, are losing a lot of men on this slope.
The pressure is really on them. I wasn't sure whether that was Bolocki who may have just passed through, but I only caught a glimpse of his number, and it did look like his stylo as we're now racing through up into the group. The pressure has been applied now by the Discovery Channel. It is called tempo riding, and Armstrong is hurting as many men as he can in the bunch. I think today you could say Lance is getting his own back.
A little bit of sweet revenge, I think, here this afternoon, but still you've got very much in contact there. Jan Ullrich, Alexander Vinokourov, and of course Andreas Kloden. These two men have lost a massive chunk of climb. The lone leader, Michael Rasmussen, started the climb with a 2.5 minute advantage over these two riders, and now at the summit he has 4 minutes lead.
Well, these are the two riders now. Christophe Moreau of France, and followed by Jens Voigt, the German cyclist, very popular boy, as they race towards the summit now of the Ballon d'Alsace. Rasmussen has long since gone over, currently plunging down the other side, heading to the valley, and hopefully heading to the stage victory, which I think we'll all agree he richly deserves that. He's a clear leader in the King of the Mountains. He's won every climb today. There's the crowd cheering up second and third.
I don't think anybody expected quite this battle on the Ballon d'Alsace here this afternoon. This is a magnificent crowd. These are the crowds that we'd only expect in the roads of the Alps and the Pyrenees, but today they've certainly turned out in style for the roads over the Vosges. The time gap at the summit here for Christophe Moreau is in excess of 4 minutes, Phil. It's stopping at 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Michael Rasmussen is riding away with this.
Well, and Morrow is riding himself up into second place in the King of the Mountains with that fine ride. He's looking like he has returned to the old Christoph of past. Voigt here will stay with Christoph. They'll work together. They're both strong enough. There shouldn't be a weak one there, in the hope that Voigt will take yellow.
Well, the funny thing about a rider like Jens Voigt, he's slightly limited in the mountains, but once he goes over the summit of that climb, all of a sudden his strength will come back to him. He will now begin to contribute with Christoph Moreau, and I think they might start to close in on that gap of Michael Rasmussen's. After all, they've still got 34 miles to go before they get to the finish.
Well, it doesn't sound long, does it? But it is. As we look here now, the rider with the red number on, that's the winner yesterday, Peter Weening. He's in a little bit of trouble at the moment, but he's got a good climber in front of him, the Frenchman David Moncoutier.
And looks like Thomas Vogt
in front. Yeah, they've lost a little bit of edge, but they'll fight their way back in. They're just hanging on. They should get back on the descent.
Take a few risks on the descent, and then hopefully you can reintegrate the front end of the main field, because I think we're going to be treated here to a charge off the slopes of the Ballon d'Alsace as we try and pull the race back together on the roads into Mulhouse. Armstrong looks very comfortable. He admitted yesterday he was able to easily counter the moves by Alexander Vinokourov, but he didn't want to chase everybody down. He knew the man that he wanted to watch the most, and that was Vinokourov. Once Cloden went, he said, well, I won't chase them all down, and at least I've got a 2.5-minute lead on him anyway.
The thing is, his pace set by the team today on this particular climb has been such that nobody has been able to attack. There's the face of Thomas Vogt. 10 days in yellow last year. He built his reputation on that. He's a little bit behind this year. He's not going to get yellow. 27 minutes in the overall situation. He should get back into this group. But Armstrong has set such a pace with his team today, he's done nothing himself, that he's stopped all of the attacks. The mountains are now behind them for the day. It's the run into Mulhouse, and advantage Armstrong now.
Well, yesterday he was very much on the defensive, alone at the summit of the final climb of the day. Today he has got 5 very strong teammates around him, and the names of those teammates are men who could ride high in the overall classification themselves. Acevedo, Beltran, Chechu Rubiera, Popovic, and of course Paolo Salvadelli. But this is the gruppetto, the autobus, if you like. These men, all they think about is getting to the finish without getting eliminated.
Robin McEwen, the champion of Australia there. Also Tom Bonan. This is Mikel Astalosa. Oh, sorry, that's Jean-Patrick Nazon, the other sprinter who's also falling back. All the sprinters going to come home together. No points for them today in the green jersey, as Lance Armstrong sits here behind his faithful teammate George Hincapie, while the pace is continuing with Rubiera, and they're doing extremely well. They've broken the spirit of the attackers today. They've got themselves a nice little race under control.
This team is so dedicated to one cause when it comes to the month of July. That cause is pacing Lance Armstrong through the difficulties until he decides he wants to stamp out his authority. He looked a little bit fragile yesterday when he had to make all of the moves himself. He had to chase down the attacks of Alexander Vinokourov with not a single teammate alongside him. I think today, after the discussion last night at the dinner table, Phil, they want to make a statement to Armstrong to say, Lance, we're back and we're good.
Thomas Vogt there looking up the road. It's shades of last year when he was looking up the road for the clock, and he kept his yellow jersey by 22 seconds. I remember Lance saying then, if a guy suffers like that, he deserves to keep the race lead. He's losing ground this time. Michael Rasmussen has 30 points over the top. He's done very well today. He's got a great lead in the King of the Mountains. Great lead.
Massive lead in the King of the Mountains, and now he's keeping his massive lead on the descent. The front end of the race here for Michael Rasmussen, and he's certainly not looking like a man showing any signs of weakness at all, and that would be a great coup really for Team Rabobank, because not only has this man taken the lead in the King of the Mountains classification yesterday, but if he can survive to the finish, that'll give him 2 stage wins in a row.
He's got about an hour to survive because of the downhill. He should manage 30 miles an hour. And of this quality, just mustn't take too many risks here. Look at this skill of a mountain biking expert.
I tell you what, he's
flicks in through the chicane.
He's going a lot faster than that.
Flying.
I would say this man in this part of the course here is touching almost 50 miles an hour. 80 kilometers an hour would be his average speed down here. He's all over the machine, and he's cutting very nice lines into those corners.
Well, I reckon these guys will be 10 minutes down by the top of the climb if he continues with that sort of speed. This is over the top of the Ballon d'Alsace, and 9:25 is the official gap over the top. But of course, they've already gone down the other side. The Ballon d'Alsace is now behind the Tour de France for the latest time in 100 years history of it being in the Tour. And the men driving, Discovery Channel, and Lance Armstrong sitting there as cool as you like.
Hi, I'm Peter Weining.
Welcome back. We're inside the last 40 kilometres of stage 9. Michael Rasmussen is still out front. Jens Voigt is still chasing him, well ahead of the pack containing Lance Armstrong. Chris Boardman, I suppose there are only two questions worth asking. Can Rasmussen stay out and take the stage win? Can your old mate Jens Voigt take enough time off Lance Armstrong to get the yellow jersey?
I think if Lance had a full team there, this would be really difficult to stay away. But at the moment, everybody's tired after the last couple of days. Rasmussen, well, really logically, he shouldn't be able to stay away, but he's just been holding his own all the way through. I think Jens is going to have a lot of trouble getting back up to him, but both Moreau and Voigt have worked together before, former teammates. I think they're going to stay out there.
It's going to be very interesting. It's a long, long run in to the finish here in Mulhouse, and there's a very strong wind blowing. It's going to depend very much on whether it turns into a tailwind, a crosswind or a headwind for these riders. Let's get back out on the roads to Mulhouse now and rejoin commentary with Phil and Paul.
We are looking at Discovery Channel, who are now at the head of the race at 8 minutes 58. Michael Rasmussen has won the sprint, such as it was. He was by himself ahead of Jens Voigt and Moreau. He's left with 40 kilometres left to race now. He still has a lead of 5 minutes, and he could well take the stage.
Levi Leipheimer just moving up around the outside there. He's been very quiet since the start of this year's Tour de France. He hasn't had any accidents. Remember a couple of years ago when he went down in that very nasty crash on the first stage on the open road and ended up having a very nasty fracture, and because of that fracture he wasn't able to continue in the event.
There he is, still riding a lone trail towards home. He might make it.
Well, all he has to do now is try and settle himself into a fairly good pace if he wants to survive. It was back in 2003 that Leipheimer had that nasty crash, but he did finish in 9th place overall last year. So these are the two chasers. They in fact have knocked off around about 30 seconds off the time of Michael Rasmussen. And just looking a little bit further back here, this is the back end of the main field, and this climb has done an awful lot of damage here.
Well, a long empty road, but they've sent first aid back here. Franco Pelazzotti is the leaky gas rider. It might well be Peter Weining who's come back here for Menchov.
When I look through there, it was very difficult for this man because he punctured at exactly the wrong time when none of the team cars were around, and that's why you have to have teammates alongside you at every occasion. And that's why Lance Armstrong, I think yesterday, Phil, was very lucky on the final slopes of that climb, because if he'd had a flat tyre at that point, the team cars were an awful long way behind.
It's ironic, we've got the Rabobank rider running away with the lead, and he's got the man who was thought was going to be a big challenger chasing to get back onto the bunch right now. Michael Rasmussen, clear leader in the King of the Mountains. He won't be wiped out even on day one in the Alps now. He's got enough points in the bank to survive a little while. 5:05 to the two-man chase. And the gap, 9 minutes 4. The peloton have started to lose ground again. This is good news for Michael.
It's unbelievable news for Michael Rasmussen. I don't think he could believe this morning when he set out on this escapade of his that he was going to get maximum points over all of the hills on the day, but still have a huge advantage over the front end of the main field. The two chasers here are actually starting to settle themselves into a very good rhythm. The advantage on the flatter part of the course for these two riders is Jens Voigt is such a strong bike rider.
Christophe Moreau here calling for a drink, I think, as they keep the pressure on. They haven't given up seeing the likes of Michael Rasmussen yet. He might well crack on the run-in. It's a long, thankless run-in now. There's another sprint at 28 to go. Voigt will want that one as well for the small time bonus.
This is a brilliant move, a brilliant day's racing that I don't think we could have really expected at the start of the day. Michael Rasmussen is actually leading these two riders now by 3 minutes and 45 seconds. So they are slowly but surely starting to approach to him. The rider who is in 5th place on the road, in fact, is still Constantino Zabaya. He's on his own. He is, in fact, at 5 minutes and 5 seconds. In the main field, slowing down to outside of 9 minutes again.
Well, the crowd are cheering everything they see today, but they're seeing a very fragmented front end to the Tour de France and a heroic performance by Michael. This is the chase now, very much under the control of Discovery today. They're making a point. Having been caught and isolated yesterday, they've got the head of the race now, and they're going to keep it.
Hi, I'm Nicky Sorensen. More from the Tour after the break.
Welcome back. 29 kilometres to go for Michael Rasmussen, still out on his long lone break, trying to take this stage win on the road to Mulhouse. And Chris Boardman, Discovery are at the front of the chasing pack, but they're not really making any time on Rasmussen or on Jens Voigt and Christophe Moreau behind him. Are they happy to let them go?
Well, Rasmussen's doing the ride of his life. Discovery are either very tired or very, very clever. For example, if Jens does actually take the jersey by a couple of minutes, then Lance can take that back on a single climb, so that's actually good for them. And if they get any closer, well, they may just stimulate the racing.
All right, well, we'll see if Rasmussen can do it. We'll see if Voigt can do it behind him. Discovery are on the front, perhaps hoping that someone else will join in the chase on the run into this finish. Let's get back to commentary.
Number 101, Christophe Moreau. Number 28, Jens Voigt. They still perplexed, are holding off the field by minutes, but they can't get any closer to Michael Rasmussen. It's still looking good for Voigt as the new race leader of the Tour tonight, but there's a new challenger in the Tour de France now.
There certainly is, but I can't believe that Michael Rasmussen could put in this much effort on a race like this and recuperate to think about riding high in the overall classification. If he tries to ride for the polka dot jersey, well, then he's going to leave a lot of ammunition out on the slopes of the Alps and the Pyrenees. Look at the way he is riding, though, now, Phil. If you look at the way this man's body is talking to us, his body language is saying he is hyper-motivated. He's going into a moment here where his body is screaming for help, but he's turning it down.
Absolutely amazing piece of cycling today.
Phenomenal piece of cycling by this man. And I've got my fingers crossed that he wins the stage, because a man who attacks at the start of a mountain climb like the one we have seen today and stays clear over the top of every mountain pass on the occasion deserves to win the stage as well. I never expected this race to be quite as difficult as it's turning out to be. Rasmussen is holding on to around about 4 minutes, and I don't really think the front end of the main field are that excited to chase him down. Armstrong is thinking about the 3-week race. He's thinking about the riders from T-Mobile. He's thinking about Alexander Vinokourov, Jan Ullrich, and the other host of challengers who will come once we get to the big mountain passes. These riders today are looking for a little bit of individual glory out on the roads. Heading into town. This is the town of Blois. That's 31 kilometers to go. These two men have got themselves a very good rhythm going. Jens Voigt is an unbelievable bike rider. He really is aggressive. He really goes out on a limb. He's a man who really, theoretically, lying in second place overall, should never have been given the possibility of attacking. He should never really maybe have attacked himself, but he threw caution to the wind after a couple of kilometers of today's stage and took off in a group of 6 riders. But none of them were able to do anything. They cannot dent the advantage. Look at these times. 4 minutes and 4 seconds back to these two chasers, and still only just inside of 9 minutes to the main field, who we're looking at here once again being led by Discovery Channel. And the way they're riding, I've got to say, they are not trying to pull back Jens Voigt. All they're doing is neutralizing the day. They're neutralizing Ullrich and the rider from Kazakhstan who just went through there, Alexander Vinokourov. But they are making a very big demonstration. They're saying Discovery Channel is back. Discovery Channel is on the road to setting themselves up to another crack at winning the Tour de France 7 times in a row for Lance Armstrong, if he can do it this year.
The peloton, I think, have decided to ride to the rest day now and accept they were beaten in the 2nd kilometre today. when up the road went Michael Rasmussen. They thought for the early King of the Mountains, they didn't surely expect he would still be there now as we get the run-in down towards the finish. This has been fantastic bike riding.
Brilliant bike riding. This man has... It's a strange situation to be in, but when you get to a point in a race when you know that you can seriously win, the body and the mind kick in, and it helps you to push yourself into that pain zone for that little bit longer. And this man, I can tell you from experience, is going through all kinds of pain right now, but he can accept it because he's beginning to believe that he's going to win the stage as well.
Well, he's looking a little bit more urgent now. It's obviously getting through to him, the fatigue of the day, but he's going to try and hang on, and he's showing no signs yet of losing this lead. Time is running out for the chasers, of course. It will be a huge effort now for Voigt and Christophe Moreau to get across the gap to them. It's been a day that has not been all good luck for riders. Zabriskie, who won the very first stage of the Tour, he is now out of the race. Igor Gonzalez de Galliano crashed out of the race today, so too did Gomez in the feeding station. The sprinter Jan Kurtip, who's thrown in the towel as well.
Just an indication, Phil, that you have to be attentive every kilometre of this 3-week race around France. 4 minutes and 11 seconds. You know, Rasmussen is once again opening up the gap on these riders. It really is quite remarkable. He is incredibly motivated. He's forcing himself ahead. He's going to move right up into the top placings in the overall classification at the end of today, especially if the main field stay at around about 7 or 8 minutes.
Well, over the line goes Voigt in second place, gets himself 4 seconds, so he's picked up a total of 10 seconds today. 10 seconds today, so he's now only 50 seconds required at the line to be ahead of Lance.
And that really is amazing. At 25 kilometres to go for the lone leader.
Salut, c'est David Moncoutier. Je vous donne rendez-vous au Tour de France après les pubs.
Looking down to around about 25 kilometres point here. 6 minutes 50 to the... Actually, it's to 4 chasers, I think, because it's the breakaway which is split up. 3:56 to the 2 chasers, 6:50 to the rest of the group, 8:43 to the main field.
This has been, Phil, an incredible day's racing. Michael Rasmussen attacked the race after just 4 kilometres of the stage, and that is amazing to think that he would survive. I thought he would get himself some points, but I never imagined he was setting himself up for a breakaway of around about 167 kilometres of racing. It's remarkable. Team Discovery Channel don't seem to... Oh, this looks as if there was somebody did go down there on the right-hand side. You've got to pay attention when you come into town in France, and it looked as if it was a Bouygues Telecom rider who went down quite hard there.
It was, and I think he might have hit that little obelisk in the centre of the road there. As usual, the doctors are very quickly on the scene. It was a Bouygues Telecom, Paul.
He went down very hard, and it was just actually avoiding that straw bale for protection that he went down extremely hard, and he looks a little bit winded there as we go by him.
I think it's Jérôme Pinot, but I'm not going to be absolutely certain at the moment, but I think it's Pinot who's gone down.
Team car is up there alongside him. The mechanic will be there very quickly. Gerard Porte in the white shirt. There is the doctor on the Tour de France who's been around forever. He picked me up once or twice, and he's always the man to look after a bike rider.
He's always so quick. He's always there like a flash. No, it's not Pinot. I think it's Mathieu Splic.
No, it's in fact it's Didier Rousse, the team leader. Yeah, the former 2-time champion of France. He doesn't know what happened. He's a very experienced bike rider, Didier Rousse, and obviously he didn't know and didn't see this sign when he came into town there. I think he's winded. I think he should be able to get back onto his machine, and if he can, he should be able to finish the race. And I'm not quite sure what Dr. Porte is doing there. He's pretty much compos mentis. Now here's a problem. Now who is this? I think this is Jens Voigt has had a problem.
It is Jens Voigt.
Yep, it's Jens Voigt.
Well, it's a good time to have a puncture. You've got to have one at all. Well, he's gone back into the race, and I'm sure... Well, where is Christophe Moreau?
Moreau is just up the road there. He will wait because he realises he needs the power of Jens Voigt. It's not worth leaving a powerhouse like Jens Voigt at the side of the road, so theoretically the honour amongst thieves would say he'd better wait for him because they need to work together to try and stay away. So bad luck there for Jens Voigt. this style of his really is a style that you can pick out from a helicopter at 1,000 feet above the race. Just over to the right-hand side there, you can see the green car there of Crédit Agricole. And, of course, I'm pretty certain that Christophe Moreau has stopped to wait for Jens Voigt, and he will then allow the two riders to start getting themselves organised once again. But that will be a good tip there for Michael Rasmussen, because the chase will have slowed down a fraction. There you can see Christophe Moreau's a very seasoned professional. He knows that he needs to wait for Jens Voigt.
Well, he's got to wait for him, because Voigt will chase after him anyway. But I mean, the irony was that Voigt has a puncture, the peloton falls off, and that just leaves Rasmussen to make a little bit of ground more over them both.
Yeah, I think Michael Rasmussen there will pick up 15 to 20 seconds on that move. Sensible move by Christophe Moreau, but after all, Phil, he is a seasoned professional. It's his 10th attempt at the Tour de France. He knows what the game is.
Well, that's correct, and he's still waiting. He's looking where he is. Here he comes. Get back into the swing of things. Time running out for everybody now. Christophe Moreau bringing Jens Voigt. At the moment, Rasmussen has got enough time over Armstrong to also be ahead of him when we get to the finishing line in the classification. Lance could find himself in third place tonight. 8:27 the gap, 7 minutes to the other half of the breakaway, 4 minutes 12 to these two pursuers.
This has been an unbelievable day. I never expected the day to be like this. I thought we might have a bit of a sort out on the Ballon d'Alsace, but I never really expected to see somebody attack somebody with the reputation of a Michael Rasmussen after just 4 kilometers of racing. It's going to be a massive chase all the way down to the finishing line right now. It's almost like a pursuit event. We've got one lone leader, Michael Rasmussen, the two chasers. There's a small group caught in the middle in no man's land, and now finally there's a few riders from Team Cofidis moving up to the front to give Discovery Channel a little bit of a hand, and I wonder if that's an indication that maybe Stewie O'Grady has managed to stay in that group.
Well, if he has, there might be a good position coming from him, but we haven't seen Stewart. We don't want to get too many people excited. He was being detached early on, but the group is quite big again now. Riders will chase back on this flat road, and it looks as though Didier Rousse is trying to chase back here as well. A man in his 12th Tour de France. He didn't finish last year. He gave up on day 17, but look at the he's covered in blood too.
Tour de France breeds a very tough group of men, and this man is one of the toughest. He's been in the Tour for a number of years. He's been 2-time the French national champion, and he's trying to reintegrate the main field on the charge down into the finishing town here of Mulhouse. But the race story is Michael Rasmussen, the man who's laid down the foundations for a massive lead in the King of the Mountains classification before we've even got to the high mountains. Lance Armstrong is in this group, and right now he's looking for some allies to pick up the pacemaking once again. If we could just get down, there's Yoshiba Bolocki. That's great to see. This man is well up in the overall classification. I thought the team had made a serious error when they picked him for the Tour de France this year, because he was reputedly, talking to Neil Stevens, who works with Liberty Seguros, he told me that he was in fact around about 5 kilos overweight. This is at the back of the race at Gerard Port. He's looking after Didier Rousse, cut up his right elbow quite dramatically there, went down very hard indeed. Now that, I would say, is the group of riders who are caught in no man's land, and they're very shortly going to get picked up by the front end of the main field. They did, at the last time check, have about a minute's advantage over the peloton. Well, very shortly, they'll have a lot of other riders for company. So race situation is still very much one lone leader, Michael Rasmussen, and I can't really believe that he's going to fail. I can't believe that he's not going to get caught down towards the end. Jens Voigt has earned himself already 10 seconds in time bonuses out on the course this afternoon, and he knows that on the finishing line, if they can stay off the front end of the main field, there are 12 seconds bonus available for the second man to cross the line. And he knows that if they're 45 seconds ahead of the main field, then he will be the new wearer of the yellow jersey this evening, and that will be for the second time in his career. 16 kilometers to go for Rasmussen. That's just 10 miles left of racing.
4 minutes 11 seconds. He is riding virtually at the same speed as the two chasers, probably a fraction quicker.
This man is a beast of a bike rider. He's a great tough man. He had a long career as a mountain biker. And looking at the way he's riding here on the road, Phil, I'm pretty glad that he'd swapped across to the road racing discipline.
Yeah, well, he's ridden brilliantly today, which is a long time. With this breakaway is virtually start to finish today. About 2 kilometres down the road, the attack started. He went out in front because the top of the first climb was after only 6 kilometres. He was already on his own. You're right about the organisation coming from Team Cofidis here, Paul. They've got a little bit of a feeling they might have somebody to deliver for what will be, well, only 7th place at the moment, of course. They've got to pick up the chasers in between.
Well, the chasers are going to get caught very shortly because they're only around about a minute in front of this group, and I'm sure they will pick them up. There you go, confirmation. It's 1 minute and 9 seconds coming through. So I should think they will catch that group that's caught in no man's land before the finish line, but certainly they don't seem to be denting the lead of Michael Rasmussen or Jens Voigt and Christophe Moreau. Cedric Vasseur, by the way, is having a bit of a hard time because his heart rate has climbed up to around about 171. Ouch.
Well, he's working hard. And, oh, look at that lovely steam train. It's a saddle tank, is it?
Well, you're the expert.
I don't know.
Did you get its number?
It's got a tailwind and all that. 15 kilometres to go for the man out front now, and it is virtually a ride of glorious honour here for Michael Rasmussen. He's got his flotilla of motorbikes, the race director. He's got one team car with him, and he's got the whole road ahead of him, and the peloton can do nothing about it. They are now 101 behind the remnants of the breakaway that never could catch up with Michael Rasmussen today. Very soon it'll be him, 2 chasers in the bunch. That's the way it's going to come down to the finish, it looks like now.
4 minutes and 13 seconds advantage he has over the 2 chasers, and certainly right now he is not slowing down at all. He's got a good rhythm. Every now and again you will notice him getting his hands into the middle of the handlebars, and the reason for that is to get himself into as an aerodynamic position as possible, because aerodynamic bars are not allowed in a race on the road.
Hello, I'm Eric Decker, and after the break there.
Well, we peer along the road here. We're just on 10 kilometres from the finish. Michael Rasmussen, this brilliant former mountain biker, has been away from start to finish today. Give him the benefit of the first kilometre when he was probably in the bunch. It has been an incredible day of racing, and they're not going to catch him now before the finish.
Well, if he survives, and I'm pretty sure he's going to survive now, that will make a 167-kilometre breakaway. That is phenomenal, especially when you look at the race profile, Phil, because we started the day off with 3 very difficult climbs. There were 2 third categories, a second category, but then the first category of the Ballon d'Alsace surely was the hardest. So confirmation crackling in over race radio that he's still holding 4 minutes and 20 seconds over the 2 chasers, and that will be sight for his sore eyes as well, because now there's confirmation of that banner. 10 kilometres to go. Team manager in the car up alongside him is the second team manager for the team, by the way, and he's a man who's no stranger to the Tour de France. That is Frans Maassen, who is driving the team car there, and Maassen himself was the winner of the opening stage of the Tour de France many, many years ago. That was in Futuroscope back in 1990. And Frans Maassen himself rode the Tour de France 7 times. You give him a little bit of a word of advice here. As soon as he gets to around about 7 kilometres to go, he will have the advantage of actually being in the outskirts of Mulhouse, and the big advantage of that is he will manage to escape the wind. He'll get up into the big built-up area, and he will start to feel just that little bit more comfortable. Confirmation of the gap, 4 minutes and 17 seconds, and still only just inside of 8 minutes back to the main field. What a day that has turned out to be. Well, from Copenhagen is Michael Rasmussen. His greatest honour came when he was the world mountain bike champion, but in 2000 he was given the chance to turn professional, and he decided to join Team Rabobank, and then they've nurtured him over the years and developed him into a rider who certainly can go up some of the big mountains in an incredible style. In fact, I've got that wrong. He turned professional for CSC, the team of Bjarne Riis, before being poached back in 2003 by Rabobank. They saw the ability of this man to ride up mountains, and in fact in 2003 he won himself a stage of the Vuelta a España, and that was to the Pyrenean finishing climb of the Châtaigneraie.
Well, he's showing signs there, Paul, of looking like he's getting tired, and so he should be as well. But I don't think they're going to catch him. It's a question of whether the peloton can close in on Jens Voigt. He's got a couple of minutes in hand at the moment.
That's the only race left to unfold for me now, because they're not going to catch this man as he powers away towards the finish. He's still got plenty of energy in the pedaling style of his. Sitting a little bit upright, not quite as aerodynamic as he should be, but he will still conserve a massive part of his advantage. The big chase behind has to come from the main field, but even though Team Cofidis seem to be whipping up the pace making, they are not really eating into the advantage of Christophe Moreau and Jens Voigt.
Well, he is a climber. We knew he was a climber. We never thought he was this good. Michael Rasmussen today, he did win a stage of the Tour of Spain once when it came into France to Châtaigneraie, and that's in the Pyrenees. And that was a couple of years ago. He hasn't won a race, in fact, for 13 months. He's chosen the right day to come back.
Yeah, but the race that he did win was in a nice area of France. It was in the Dauphiné Libéré, which is an indication that he was going to be a great Tour de France rider. These are the chasers. Christophe Moreau really looks to be suffering a lot more than the man who's in the lead at the front. And Jens Voigt, well, I can't say enough about Jens Voigt. He's a brilliant bike rider. I love to see the way he performs. He really digs down deep, and this morning in second place overall, not very many people would have ticked him to be the attacker.
Well, I've got the feeling Paul Sherwin did, and I'll tell you what, that this guy has really chosen to race today because he's seen it as his last chance to get his hands on the maillot jaune at least for a day. He had to go very early. He attacked as soon as the slope started at the Col de Grosse-Pierre. He was clear by the time they went over the top, and he's paying off. This rider attacked before then, and nobody's seen him at all, Michael Rasmussen. According to our computer now, he's 7.7, let's say 7.5 kilometers from the end.
It's going to take him around about 10 minutes at this speed to get himself to the finish line. He's clocking every kilometer at about 1:10. A minute and 10 seconds for every kilometer of riding. He's probably just inside of 50 kilometers an hour average speed. Now here are the two chasers, and they too now are going under the banner that indicates 10 kilometers to go. So they are still almost 3 kilometers behind him. They've got to survive. For Jens Voigt, he has to survive currently by just 50 seconds. That's not taking into account the time bonuses on the finishing line. There is still, for second and third place, a 12-second time bonus for the second place rider and 8 seconds for the third place rider on the line. Time bonuses are not any worry at all to this man as he goes inside the 7 kilometer to go mark, because all he's thinking about is the stage victory. And what a wonderful weekend this is going to be for Team Rabobank. They got the win yesterday with a first attempt at the Tour de France for their man Peter Winning.
Nice smile here from Thomas Vogler as he gets himself back into the group, but he's had his ups and downs today.
Certainly had his ups and downs. I think he suffered a lot over the slopes of the Ballon d'Alsace, but he will be very happy indeed that he's in the front group now.
Less than 7 kilometres to go for Michael Rasmussen. A little bit longer for Jens Voigt and Christophe Moreau. Let's see if they can hold on and whether the yellow jersey is going to change hands. We'll take a break.
Hi, I'm Peter.
Michael Rasmussen, a massive crowd on a wide boulevard. We're on the outskirts of Mulhouse now. And listen to the crowd shouting him on every inch of the way. Allez, 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 keep going, go for it. Every language, it's all on the barriers now. And they're seeing a Danish rider run for home.
Running for home here, and just made a quick time check, Phil, on that last kilometer that he did. He did it in 1 minute and 15 seconds, and that is having been at the front of the race for 165 kilometers. I really don't know where he's getting his power from. He's being driven on today by an incredible mental force, because his body will be screaming out for the white flag to go up in surrender, but it will not stop. His body will not stop feeling that pain for another 3 kilometers. Well, actually, it's about 2.5.
Just listen now, his head's rocking and rolling here. He's seeking in this wide boulevard the shortest way around every corner, because every inch will count now. These boys are not getting closer, but they are nudging a little bit closer now. They've got inside 4 minutes at the moment. 3:41 to the chasers, so they've got 20 seconds back. 7:37 to the peloton. They're worried about the chase from Armstrong. He's worried about the chase from the whole field.
Everybody's worried about everything else apart from the sprinters today, who are going to have to take a back seat because we got a time check to the group of Tom Boonen just recently, and Tom Boonen's group was at least 20 minutes behind this group on the road. It's a big chase now for Jens Voigt. Look at the power there. He's rolling the top half of his body, trying to find as much power as he can to stay at least 38 seconds off the front of Lance Armstrong's group. If he finishes in third place, he needs to finish 42 seconds ahead of the yellow jersey group. I think he's got enough in hand to do that.
Look at these two now, desperate. A little word now, a little nod. Will we work together? I wonder what Morrow said then, but they both agreed, and it was to get on with their thing, and probably saying, look, no finessing, let's race for the line. 2 kilometres to go now for the man, and I think, Paul, I might be wrong, I don't think a Danish rider has ever won a stage of the Tour de France since Rolf Sørensen back in 1996 when he won at Superbest.
Apart from that guy who was a hamburger and got fried.
Oh, I forgot about Bo Hamburger. Where did he win?
It was a long way over towards the western part of France. It was a very hot day on that occasion, and he took off very early on. But this man...
Yeah, but that was 2 years before Sørensen. That was in Tresilliac in 1994, so I'm staying with Sørensen.
OK, you go with Sørensen.
There's the leader now.
Yeah, what about Jakob Peel in 2003?
Oh, yes, OK, I'll give you that one. Jakob Peel.
Doesn't matter. This is a great performance. It doesn't matter who was the last Dane to win, because we know now that the last Dane to win is going to be this man we're looking at here.
Yes, down in Marseille, Jakob Peel. He was on the cut. He never made the team this year for CSC, left at home. And now he can watch this on television. The next Danish winner of a stage of the Tour de France, and a big leader in the King of the Mountains, because Michael Rasmussen is so clearly tired now. He's got to feel the adrenaline course through those veins just for a little bit longer. These streets now, as he heads to the kilometre, he is 1,000 metres away from almost an all-day breakaway over the mountains of the Black Forest and the Vosges. What a breakaway, what a fantastic performance.
He went out this morning really, Phil, with only one thing in the back of his mind, to try and get as many points as possible in the King of the Mountains classification. I can't really believe that he thought he was going to ride away from the main field for 167 kilometres of this 171 kilometre stage, but he's done it. He's into the final straight now. Very shortly, the road is going to straighten up in front of him, and he will see the banner over the finishing line.
Well, what a great moment. His second Tour de France. He did nothing but finish 14th last year. We hardly mentioned him. This year he's back. Leader of the King of the Mountains yesterday. Today a winner of the stage. He can stand by to enjoy this, throw away a few seconds and wave to the crowd. It has been an exhibition of terrific bike riding over all of the mountains of this region in first place. He won all the prizes along the route except one small prize. He gave that to the rider who dared to join him for a short distance, and then he dispatched him back to the field. It's a little bit of a lonely ride, but he should start to feel good pretty much now, as this massive crowd in Mulhouse cheer him all the way home.
It's a corridor of noise that this rider is going through, urging him up to the finishing line. They realise how brave this man has been here this afternoon. They realise what an effort he's had to put in to survive off the front on a very difficult day through the Vosges.
For nearly 4.5 hours, they've watched him on the television at the finishing line. Now they can see him in person as he salutes the crowd. He gets his first ever stage win. He could not have imagined that was the way it was going to be when he left around midday today from the town of Jaromir.
Well, now we have to wait for Jens Voigt to come in with his compatriot for the afternoon, Christophe Moreau. And I've just cast my mind back. I'd forgotten that for many, many years, Moreau and Voigt rode for the same Crédit Agricole team. The time difference between them at the moment is around about 3.5 minutes. But what a victory for this young man here. What a way to get a foundation for a lead in the King of the Mountains classification as we go a little bit further out now to Christophe Moreau and Jens Voigt. And I'm sure Jens Voigt will try and get himself second place and the 12-second time bonus.
That's what he'll want, but Moreau is also a pretty good sprinter. It'll be an interesting one. There's the celebrations, though, back at the finishing line, as Michael Rasmussen can forget the pain now and take a little bit of a rest. Wow, that was a ride and a half in the great style of somebody like Fausto Coppi, Eddie Merckx, or dare I say it, Lance Armstrong.
Brilliant performance now as we go back to second and third place rider on the road, and still a long way back is the main field, which contains all of the favourites. The last time check we got, it was around about 7.5 minutes. If Jens Voigt finishes in second place, he only needs 38 seconds ahead of the yellow jersey group of Lance Armstrong, and the clock is still ticking. It's a minute and a half since Rasmussen crossed the finishing line, and these two riders now can finally see what they've been dreaming about for a long time, the red kite of the last 1,000 metres.
They will cross the line just on 3 minutes behind the winner today. They never really clawed him back all day. They rode at almost the same speed. They're going to work to the line because they want time over Lance Armstrong. They cannot finesse who gets second, almost immaterial. They want time because they don't know how it'll pan out when the Alps start on Tuesday.
You're right, second or third is not important at all to these riders. It's the time between them as they cross the finishing line and the front end of the main field when they come in around about 3 minutes time. And Jens Voigt wants that. He is looking at the end of that road. Actually, you know, he can't see the finishing banner. All he can see is a big yellow jersey, and it's got his name all over it.
So they race up towards the line now. Every last ounce of energy here from Christophe Moreau as he drives towards the finish, because he could climb alongside Armstrong in the Alps, and I think he believes that, so he wants every second he can take right now. I think we're looking at the yellow jersey sat behind him, but that depends on how fast it takes the bunch to get in. We drive up to the finishing line now. I don't think Jens is going to even try to go by him as they come to the line. Christophe Moreau, the Frenchman, has certainly found his old form again. They used to be teammates, as Paul has said. They're now rivals, but I think today they're teammates again. As they come up to the line, 3 minutes has passed by on the clock, and Christophe Moreau takes second. Voigt is third. The clocks have started now. Let's wait for Armstrong.
We're going to have a big, long wait now to see who is going to be the yellow jersey. But, you know, the main field is still an awful long way back. We have to wait 42 seconds to see whether or not it's going to be Jens Voigt. And I think it already is Jens Voigt. The main field are being led home still by Discovery Channel. We mustn't forget that the winner of the stage is Michael Rasmussen. Second place on the stage going to Christophe Moreau. Third place going to Jens Voigt. And Jens Voigt, I think, right now has done just enough to be the new yellow jersey here at the Tour de France.
Well, Voigt has done most things in his cycling career, but we love him. That was a great ride by Jens. Now he's got to wait. These are nervous moments, of course, to see just if he is the next maillot jaune of the Tour de France. We know the stage winner. We're yet to find out who is the actual race leader. Here comes Discovery under escort.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, more than 42 seconds has gone by already, so it's going to go to Jens Voigt. And I don't think very many people in the main field will be upset at all about that, because Jens has to be one of the most popular riders. And I think I just caught a glimpse there of Stewie O'Grady in this group. Now, he got himself over the mountains. A fourth place finish for Stuart O'Grady is going to be quite remarkable. We're looking here at the celebrations there very briefly of Jens Voigt. He's getting congratulations coming from Christophe Moreau, but in the main field, I think if you just catch a glimpse there, Stewie O'Grady's not far away from the front.
Big pressure for O'Grady this. It's a major score in the green jersey points competition on the mountain stage for a sprinter to take points. The other sprinters are a long way back. They'll be just talking to each other, hoping to beat the time limit, which of course they'll do. 1 kilometre to go now for the sprint, and O'Grady has got himself up into third wheel here, looking for it. There he is, the man behind the other man in white.
Well, that's amazing. That's Bradley McGee who's up there as well. But that is a fabulous performance, whether or not O'Grady wins this sprint, because he's got himself over the Ballon d'Alsace. Ballon d'Alsace is a very difficult climb. It's a first category climb. This is the big lead out. This is David Moncoutier on the front, taking over the pacemaking now. It's Cedric Vasseur up into third place is Stewie O'Grady. He wants this 4 points for this place here. His fourth place here at the end of the stage is going to move him very close to the top end of the green jersey race. He's there looking over his shoulder. There are not very many top sprinters in this group as Stewie O'Grady is lined up. It's still Cedric Vasseur all over the machine. O'Grady's waiting. There's a challenge coming from leaky gas up through the middle there, but O'Grady's still waiting. He's an experienced track rider when it comes down to sprinting at the end of a race like this, and he wants to make sure he gets himself maximum points. Here's the explosion coming down the right-hand side. The Aussie's going for it. O'Grady's trying to get himself 4th place on the stage. It's going to be so important, but Bradley McGee is challenging him on the line. It's O'Grady just ahead of Bradley McGee, but that is a great move up the points classification for Stewie O'Grady from Adelaide, the only sprinter here this afternoon to get himself over the Ballon d'Alsace. And at the back of that group there is Lance Armstrong in the yellow jersey. Nice and comfortable for Armstrong, not a problem at all. Let's look at this one more time. Stewie O'Grady bearing the marks there on his calf of an accident a couple of days ago, but today he wants this. Look at that face, the grimace, the power of O'Grady, once voted the best track cyclist in the world. The lunge for the line, and he gets himself 4th place and quite a few points, and that'll move him right up in the race for the green jersey, a title that he would like to be the next Australian to take. Great form here by Stewie O'Grady, getting himself that 4th place.
Well, that was a superb sprint by Stuart O'Grady. He was in trouble on the Ballon d'Alsace, but he got over that. He came into the group. His team did a good job. They brought him to the line. He gets 4th in the green jersey competition when the others got nothing. He did profit by that today. Stuart's such a crafty bike rider and such a great tactician.
Well, you know, he nearly stayed with them yesterday on the final few kilometres of the Col de la Chute, and he thought he was going to, and it was just at 4 kilometres to go that he was blown out today. He really must have tried. So there is the winner of the stage, Michael Rasmussen, after a breakaway of 167 kilometres. That is a fine performance. Not only does he win the stage, 2 stages in a row for Team Rabobank of Holland, but also he really builds himself up a very big lead in the King of the Mountains classification. That was a phenomenal performance, and it's a day where we've seen the yellow jersey change hands as well. Lance Armstrong and his team losing around about 4 minutes on Jens Voigt. Maybe not that important for Armstrong, because I think he feels quite happy to pass over the yellow jersey for a couple of days. And we're looking here at Michael Rasmussen just being interviewed in Danish. And unfortunately, I don't speak very good Danish, but I think what he would probably say is he can't believe the breakaway that he put in today. He was expecting to go out and get himself points for the King of the Mountains, and it turned into a long escapade. One that will go down into the legends of this year's Tour de France, that is almost certain. A breakaway of 167 kilometres, a stage win, and a big lead in the King of the Mountains race. And he's going to talk to us now in English for a few moments. Let's hear what he has to say, because
and you did it
great
today
ride
on this long stretch of flat in the end. That's surprising.
Well, first of all, the attack was mainly to gain points for the mountain competition, and well, apparently I had really good legs and carried on until the end.
But now you reached your goal already. Stage victory, polka dots you can probably keep. Now what's next? In the Pyrenees you are aiming at the Classement also?
Well, there's still a long ways to Paris, and yes, I have the polka dot jersey, but it counts to wear it on Champs-Élysées.
And Classement?
Well, I'll have to see about that. It's a possibility, but I think right now I need a rest day.
Thank you.
I'm not surprised that he needs a rest day, because that was a very hard day's racing here this afternoon. Moving away from the question about whether or not he's going to look to a high place in the overall classification, saying that his most important thing was to have the polka dot jersey on the Champs-Élysées. But here is confirmation of the time and the gaps. Michael Rasmussen, 4 hours, 8 minutes and 20 seconds, 3 minutes, 4 seconds ahead of Moreau.
Looking down here now on the town of Mulhouse, which is right in the corner of France, and we can see Germany and Switzerland as the riders now get a nice warm down before presentation.
Yep, that time gap, 3 minutes and 4 seconds back to Christophe Moreau and Jens Voigt, and a further 3 minutes back to Stuart O'Grady, who led home Philippe Gilbert in 5th place, Anthony Geslin of Bouygues Telecom 6th, Sebastian Lang in 7th, Laurent Brochard up there as well, and Gerrit Klomser, the Austrian national champion, he crossed the line in 10th place. But when we get a chance to look at the overall classification, we'd see a slightly different name at the top end of the leaderboard there, because it will no longer read Lance Armstrong of the United States of America. When it pops up here at the top, it's going to be with a German name, Jens Voigt.
Followed by Christoph Morrow. Lance is down to third. Rasmussen up into fourth. Vinokurov down to fifth. Bobby Julich down to sixth. Those three breakaways making the most of an extraordinary day today in the Tour de France, and hats off to them all. They are not afraid of the reputations of some of the bigger riders in this Tour de France.
So Jens Voigt is the new leader of the race. Chris Boardman, an old teammate of yours. On a personal note, you must be absolutely over the moon for him.
Jens absolutely loves it. Jens's style, or his only tactics, has ever been to just smash yourself. It's his favourite saying. That's exactly what he did today. It was really good to see.
In terms of the overall race, though, is it good tactics by CSC? He's obviously taken a lot out of himself in order to get the yellow jersey. He's probably not a threat to dethrone Armstrong in Paris, and one of their men is now absolutely shattered going into the rest day.
Well, he did a very good time trial on day one, which put him in a very, very difficult position. We would normally have seen Jens make this kind of move and get up the road, but he was too close on general. But today there was nothing they could do about it. There was just so much action going on. He was the lesser of evils. They let him go and he made the most of it. But I feel it may take him more than one day to recover from that.
OK, a word about Rasmussen. Not a bad ride for an ex-mountain biker.
No, he's won some big things in his life, but this really overshadows everything that he's done so far. I feel today he's really made his name and he's stepped onto the big stage. I think he's going to be here for a while too.
Well, I mean, that's it, surely, for the King. Well, I mean, he could lose the King of the Mountains competition, but if he keeps going out and taking the early climbs, even if he doesn't hang on the way he did today, presumably he's got that competition wrapped up the way Richard Virenque used to.
I think he's going to find it difficult now because he won't be the only one who wants to get up the road, and there's other people that are. Christophe Moreau, for example, may still have designs on that jersey, but it will be difficult, and we've heard him very shrewdly saying that he's not going to think too much about the overall, he's going to concentrate on the jersey, and I think if he's going to keep it, that's what he has to do.
Well, he deserves it on today's performance. Great ride by Michael Rasmussen. Let's turn back to the overall, though. Discovery were at the front today, but they weren't really pushing it. I mean, was that a show of strength that impressed you or not?
I actually think they were limiting their losses. I mean, we've said this before, we've seen Armstrong bluff before, but after yesterday, which certainly was not by design, I think they were limiting their losses today. They were probably looking to get a little bit of help from Cofidis at the end as well.
And, well, talking of Cofidis, you know, people wonder why, you know, you see guys sprinting desperately for fourth place, but Stuart O'Grady perhaps sights a little way back into the green jersey competition. Yeah,
it's quite possible that Boonen has gone off the boil. We saw him 2 fantastic days, and then he really seemed to take a nosedive. So Stewie knows how the Tour works. He knows that Boonen might not make it through the mountains, so he's just going to make sure that he's ready to take advantage of anything that happens.
All right, well, why people sprint desperately for the lower places is just one of the questions you've been sending in. We've got a few emails here. The first of them from Cameron Bell in Ayr in Scotland. Do the riders get a choice of tyre depending on the weather and the road surfaces?
Well, actually, the team the tyres are actually stuck on, remember, so it's not very easy to swap them out. But if you look at the weather that we've been having, it can change dramatically. So the teams tend to err on the side of caution. They put something on that's got a reasonable amount of grip and is pretty reliable. Only the time trial stages that they'll put something lighter on.
And T-Mobile had a few punctures today. You were saying that might be because of their choice of rims as opposed to tyres.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams starting to use carbon fibre rims now, and carbon fibre doesn't dissipate heat well. It really puts a lot of strain on the brakes, and sometimes the rims can also heat up and transfer that to the tyre explodes.
Now, when people do have punctures, they need to get back into the race sharpish. Here's an email from Colin Veach in London. On stage 6, it looked like Ivan Basso and his teammates were drafting behind a team car as they worked their way back to the peloton. How long can you get away with that for?
Well, we've seen a few nifty tricks today. You can see how the riders hold the bottles when they get a bottle out of the car. It really is up to the commissaire. They're floating around on motorbikes. If you're passing through the convoy, then that's fine. But if you actually stop behind a car, then they may take a dim view of that, and they'll get penalties in both financially and in time. So for a GC rider, it could be quite devastating.
All right, last one for the minute. Paul Freeman of Stafford. Why is Alexander Vinokurov racing in a turquoise kit instead of the pink of T-Mobile?
Well, that's his national jersey, and actually he's designed it himself as well. So I think it's quite a nifty-looking piece.
Good on him. All right. Let's have a look at the presentations. Well, they're coming up in a short while. While we wait for them, Chris, what do you think the tactics are going to be coming out of the rest day? It's straight into the Alps. There's no messing about. We didn't really see the attacks we expected today on Armstrong's team because Jens Voigt went up the road and kind of neutralised everything. Is there going to be a resumption of hostilities from the gun on Tuesday?
I think the big killer today was the fact that the final climb was actually nearly 60 kilometres from the finish. There's a long way to go if you've gained a small amount. I think if Lance wants to win this Tour, he's going to have to stamp his authority on it very soon, and I think that may be what he does when we get back into the mountains.
On the subject of the rest day, how much? Well, there are the presentations as we talk. Michael Rasmussen taking his first ever stage win in his second Tour. Great Tour for Rabobank, Chris. I mean, 2 stage wins.
Yeah, and we've seen Decker as well. The absolute classics attacked early on, so they've been trying really hard. So it's good to see that it's paid off, because it's not just one individual. The whole team has been trying to make this happen.
Strange tradition too. I mean, I know he's a Dane, but he's on a Dutch team, and the Dutch just seem to be addicted to the mountains. Yeah,
it is curious. They do seem to do well on the harder stages, and certainly built for it. I believe he's called Chicken because of his very slightly built legs there. I think we'll be seeing more of him in the future.
Now, we're just about to see Jens Voigt go onto the podium. He's taken the yellow jersey before. How much is this going to mean to him?
I think Jens, he loves to work hard for it, and he's got it. And I think everybody, when we've seen how much they've done today, that everybody deserved what they got. It was a finish that everyone's going to walk away from smiling, apart from perhaps the Discovery team.
Well, talking about the CSC team, Discovery team we've seen today riding at the front, this man is about to get the yellow jersey. Does CSC really want to defend it? I mean, even Basso's there, man. They don't want to spend a lot of energy defending Jens in the yellow jersey, do they?
Well, luckily, they don't have to make that decision. Jens will probably be allowed to lose the jersey naturally if he loses it at all. He won't be forced to work for the rest of the team, but they go straight into the mountains, so it's going to be pretty much almost a time trial anyway.
And how much has he taken out of himself with today's effort?
That was a big day today. It was an awful long time up the road. You could see in the last few kilometres, particularly with the wind, that they were working hard and labouring. If you've been sitting in the peloton, you had a fairly easy day. So I think it's going to take more than one day.
All right, there's Jens in the yellow jersey. And tomorrow it's the rest day, as you know, but don't worry, you'll still get your daily fix of cycling. 2, in fact, because we'll be recapping the race on both ITV channels. We're back here at 7 p.m. with the story of the Tour so far, and on ITV1 at 11:35. Then on Tuesday, it'll be straight into the Alps, climbing up to the first mountain finish of this year's Tour at Courchevel. We'll see you for that on Tuesday. Yesterday, Lance Armstrong stamped his authority on the Tour de France with a performance that cracked all his major rivals. Today, Dario Frigo just stamped on it, the latest in a depressingly long line of riders thrown off the Tour over drugs. Good evening from Briançon. Well, we're braced for days like these, days when the racing gets shunted down the running order while we talk about drugs. And on this year's Tour, today's the day. Here are the facts as we know them at the moment. Dario Frigo, the Italian rider from Fassa Bortolo, is currently being questioned by gendarmes after his wife's car was stopped at the French-Italian border and customs officers found, so we're told, several doses of the blood-boosting drug EPO. Now, we should underline that Frigo hasn't so far been found guilty of anything, but under the Tour's rules, any rider who's even involved in a doping investigation is instantly ineligible to ride. And in any case, Frigo has somewhat forfeited his right to the presumption of innocence, having been thrown off the 2001 Giro d'Italia for a similar offence. Now, at the start this morning in Courchevel, Christian Prudhomme, the race director, spoke to the media.
Si c'est avéré, si effectivement les produits pharmaceutiques qui ont été trouvés sont des produits interdits, il faut que M. Frigo ne puisse plus revenir dans les pelotons. La suspicion dure depuis trop longtemps. Et pour l'avenir du vélo, il faut qu'on puisse enfin dire qu'il y a plein de gens bien, qu'il y a plein de coureurs bien, il y a plein de gars qui font un métier très beau et très difficile et qui le font honnêtement. Et pour ça, il faut définitivement châtier tous ceux qui trichent. Si, encore une fois, les produits trouvés sont des produits interdits.
Oui, c'est ce que disait aussi Jean-Marie Leblanc ce matin, effectivement. Le Tour se serait bien passé d'une affaire comme celle-ci, mais elle existe, donc il faut faire avec.
Écoutez, il y a tout un arsenal pour lutter contre le dopage qui est le fléau du sport d'une manière générale. On a vu aux Jeux d'Athènes l'année dernière que ça ne concernait pas que le cyclisme, ça concerne tous les sports et pas seulement le haut niveau, certainement, hélas. Mais la police est aussi un des moyens de traquer les tricheurs. Il faut les mettre hors d'état de nuire. S'il y a encore des gens qui trichent, et il y en a hélas encore, il faut tout faire pour qu'ils ne trichent plus. Voilà.
Well, that was Christian Prudhomme speaking at the start this morning, but Chris Boardman, really, it could have been any start of any stage this past 7 years. 1998 was the big drug scandal Tour. How much cleaner are we now, do you think, than we were then?
Well, it's very, very depressing to be standing here talking about this subject yet again. And the problem, of course, is are we any cleaner? That we don't know, and everyone's frustrated. We look around and we see good performances and fantastic performances, and we're all quite paranoid now, wondering what's caused them. And it's a very sad state of affairs.
When you rode, you were always accepted from any drug accusations. People talked about things in general, except Chris Boardman, which was depressing in itself, I suppose, because it pointed the finger of suspicion at everyone else. Were you aware of the drug culture when you rode?
I think I was in a very similar position to the journalists. You see performances around you and some of them didn't make sense, and for me, I was very lucky in that I had one thing that I could do, that I could control, and I just focused on that. But that was for me personally. For the sport, we've got such a fantastic sport. It's a shame when everything is under the cloud because of one or two people.
Were you ever offered anything?
I was never offered anything. I can categorically say, as a professional bike rider, I was never offered anything here. And I was very lucky to be with the team that I was with, and that's why I stayed with them for my entire career.
Now, if we look around the television compound today, we can see men like Richard Virenque, who's a national hero, having admitted taking drugs. And he's not the only one here who's welcomed back into the fraternity of cycling. Surely that's something cycling needs to get a grip on.
Well, I don't know about you, but as a commentator, it feels very uncomfortable to commentate on somebody and how fantastic they're doing when you know that they've actually taken drugs in the past. I think really the only step forward that our sport can take, other than all the things that they have already done, is to make the penalties so draconian that the risk is genuinely greater than the reward.
And that might work with Dario Frigo. Dario Frigo, of course, already suspended once for drug offences in the Giro and riding again the next year. All right, let's hope that is the last word about drugs in today's programme. Let's get on with the racing now and stage 11. And coming into it, Lance Armstrong, of course, is back in the race lead. He has 38 seconds on Michael Rasmussen, the current King of the Mountains leader, and it's another 2 minutes back to the man in third place, Ivan Basso. Alejandro Valverde is up to fifth, 3:16 behind Armstrong. Then the gaps widen. Jan Ullrich, Andreas Klöden and Floyd Landis are all more than 4 minutes in arrears now, with Alexander Vinokourov over 6.5 minutes down in 16th place. Well, every second counts is the title of the latest volume of Lance's autobiography, but rarely can second have counted more than it has for him in this race. He was pipped in the opening time trial by David Zabriskie, and he was second again yesterday to the brilliant Valverde. But the big story of both stages wasn't the tiny margin he lost by, but the huge gain over everyone behind him. Over just 19 kilometres on stage one, he had the best part of a minute on his major rivals and nearly 2 minutes over the worst of them. Yesterday, the deficits were stretched out by the climb up to Courchevel, not because everyone else had a collective off day. It was just that nobody could stay with the murderous pace set first by Armstrong's teammates, then the man himself.
Diciamo che è stata una prova non super ma neanche male. Quando ho capito che non riuscivo a tenere il ritmo dei quattro, ho preferito continuare col mio passo e credo che ho fatto una buona prova ugualmente.
Die Mannschaft ist heute wieder extrem stark gefahren und er hat sich richtig reinfahren lassen, ist dann angetreten, da konnte ich vielleicht 400-500 Meter mitfahren und dann war bei mir erstmal die Säure in den Beinen und bis ich mich erholt hatte, musste ich erstmal ein bisschen langsam machen und dann war der Rückstand natürlich da.
Well, they could be in for more punishment today. Not that Armstrong has any urgent need to dish it out after the damage he did at Courchevel. Stage 11 takes in two of the legendary Tour climbs, the Col de la Madeleine and the giant Col du Galibier, where Ned is now.
Well, even though he died 65 years ago, Henri Desgrange, the founder of the Tour de France and celebrated psychopath, must still be chuckling to himself about the inclusion of the Col de Galibier, because frankly, asking people to ride up here on a bicycle is not the conclusion that a right-thinking brain would reach. At 2,645 metres of altitude, it's a bit like Ben Nevis, with Ben Nevis piled on top of that, and then a little bit more Ben Nevis on top of that. Still carrying the Category 1 Col du Telegraphe in your legs, you can ease off for about 5 kilometres, and then it starts. Mile after mile after mile of murderous alpine switchbacks. You shoot the tree line and enter a landscape where in the middle of summer, the snow, even I got some new feelings that make you uncomfortable. Bring out all the good in me. I see what I'll never be. Give me some reason to look on my keys and look out the way I'm taking home. So won't you say what you said to me on the roof of your house? 'Cause I've been having my doubts, oh yeah. Don't know what we could be. Sometimes I feel we're nothing, but you talk like we're something. I guess now we're giving it a try. I like the way you describe it to people who won't go quiet. Lance Armstrong rode up the entire mountain with a brake block rubbing against his wheel, and Iban Mayo attacked him on Alpe d'Huez and rode out a stage win. So on his very last Tour de France, the champion will want to leave this great mountain with greater memories than that.
Yep, today's the last time Lance will climb the Galibier, unless he's daft enough to ride it for fun once he retires. Tom Boonen, though, almost didn't make it to the foot of the climb. He came off before the race had even hit the Madeleine and looked to be in a fair bit of pain. But you can't win the sprinter's jersey if you don't suffer over the mountains, and he got back on and prepared for the longer, more drawn-out pain to come. Alejandro Valverde, in the white jersey of the best young rider, was also suffering with something. He was back at the doctor's car, washing down a pill, but rode himself straight back into the pack, looking comfortable and strong. Now, a quite astonishing percentage of the emails we get on a daily basis are asking where the devil is. Well, there he is. Now you can write in and ask why he's wearing green, and to be honest, I'm not sure. Tour Hushoff was probably just happy he'd finally had a change of clothes. Now, a handy little trio of riders got away on the climb of the Madeleine. Alexander Vinokourov and two Phonak men, Santiago Botero and Oscar Pereiro. They went over the top together. Then Pereiro went over the side, trying to take a corner and eat a sandwich at the same time. Botero looked like he might do something similar as he rode down one of cycling's more dangerous descents, looking backwards over his shoulder to see where his teammate had gone. Well, Pereiro did get back to the other two, and as we join commentary, those three are still out front on the second climb of the day. Here's Paul Sherwin now, and a sick but soldiering on Phil Liggett.
We are now approximately 900 metres from the summit of the Col de Telegraphe, the stepping stone to the Col de Galibier. The return of Botero here has done damage because he's pulled this group clear now by just under 3 minutes over Armstrong. The two Phonak riders, I don't know where he's found the strength from. He cannot stay with him, surely, because once the big one climbs, I think he'll fall back. The peloton have climbed this a lot more common sense than they did the Col de la Madeleine, but these are now the creme de la creme, because there were 170 riders started that climb. Now today, there are 120 behind this elite bunch here, and ahead of them are the three leaders. 2 minutes, 50 seconds, the gap.
We're still looking as we get up towards the summit of the Col de Telegraphe as at the most difficult climb of the race so far. The Col du Galibier tipping out at 2,650 metres. This is a very good move by Team Phonak, and these basically, Phil, are the two teams that said they would challenge Armstrong in the Tour de France this year. Phonak with three leaders, Santiago Botero, the man there in second place, the man at the back, Oscar Pereira, and of course the man locked in the group with Lance Armstrong, Floyd Landis. As Botero accelerates again to get himself maximum points on this first category climb, he's actually going to leap up in the King of the Mountains classification tonight.
You see, there's an example. When you're a bike rider at professional level, when you're in difficulty, you get dropped, you never give up. You get back and you win the climb at the top. So Botero gets it ahead of Vinokourov, who's also made a little progress up the mountains today. And Oscar Pereiro here in third place. Watch out for the chase. I'm quite sure that Rasmussen will try and tick off a fourth or a fifth place, and he'll have to take on Christophe Moreau again.
Did you look at the faces on those guys from Team Discovery Channel? They are going through all kinds of pain here this afternoon, but it's as if they can push themselves to that little bit more pain just to pace Armstrong to the top of this climb, because I think today they want Armstrong to reward them, to try and pull back this leading group. Here's the leader of the King of the Mountains classification, Michael Rasmussen.
It's going to be a standing sprint, this.
It's between these two riders. You can see Christophe Moreau on the left-hand side, and these two men are going to try and sprint it out again.
Well, it's not often you see this. They got side by side, and who's going first? And Moreau said, well, I'll go first, and it looks like he's going to get the places. Not many points, another couple of points to his advantage. He was 70 behind at the start of the day. He's picked up 4 points, that's all, on Rasmussen, so there won't be any concern yet.
Now, just watch out, because this is the sort of move that Christophe Moreau might insist over the top. He's got himself a gap over the main field. It's a 4-kilometre descent now. Now, is he going to sit up, or is he going to take advantage of this move?
Don't think he is, Paul. Looks as though he may well have sat up. Look at the crowd up here enjoying the day out.
Hi, I'm Jörg Jakce. Stay with us for more from the tour after the break.
The Tour de France on ITV, sponsored by Michelob Ultra.
Hello, A1 telephone sales.
Yes, Mrs. Scott here.
Hello.
Just to say, I have a fitted kitchen and double glazing. I don't like stone cladding.
Well, perhaps.
I don't need broadband. I don't want a timeshare. share, and my electricity supply is the cheapest around, so there's no need to call me in the next half hour.
Right.
Nothing should come between you and Kenko Capio Iced Cappuccino, now also available in deliciously indulgent mocha.
This woman is helping to end child abuse. She hasn't written a new thesis on behaviourism. She isn't a cognitive therapist. The solution just came to her at work. She gives £5 a month from her salary to the NSPCC, knowing her employer, the Royal Bank of Scotland, will add twice as much again. Can you and your employer make it happen for the NSPCC?
Sorry, madam. Whiffs a bit, doesn't it? Is your loo saying things about you behind your back? Harpic 2-in-1 is a clip-on with a gel that fragrances continuously, even without flushing. So your loo is clean and fresh at every visit. Ah, madam, take a seat. Harpic 2-in-1. What does your loo say about you?
27 days a year on regular army pay. Interested? Go to ta.mod.uk for your free TA guide.
Oi, Churchill, could you save me up to 30% of my car insurance?
Oh, yes.
With 24-hour assistance if I have an accident?
Yes.
A 5-year guarantee on repairs?
Yes.
A courtesy car while you're fixing mine?
Oh, yes.
Oh, and can I have my own personal chauffeur called Les?
No.
But I could still save up to 30% of my car insurance?
Oh, yes.
See how much you could save on your car insurance. Give the dog a phone now on 0800 200 300 or log on to churchill.com.
I love you.
Steady now.
In the future, everyone will protect their eyes from sun damage just like they protect their skin. Transitions lenses block harmful UV rays and automatically shield your eyes from glare by adjusting to changing light. So don't wait until tomorrow. The danger is here today. And so is the protection. Ask your optician about Transitions lenses.
It's frustrating going round in circles. That's why, as an O2 business customer, you only have to make one call to one person, and they'll take care of your query. O2, a world that revolves around you.
At B&Q, do more with your kitchen for less than you thought possible. With half-price stores, this complete birch veneer kitchen, including appliances, is under £2,600. And we can help create your dream kitchen with design, planning and installation. Tasty.
A car says a lot about you. So, speak for yourself. The 2005 Hyundai Coupe from 14,795 to 19,795, now with free insurance. Hyundai, a car first, a badge second.
Le Tour de France on ITV, sponsored by Michelob Ultra.
Welcome back. The three-man breakaway is now on the climb of the Galibier. Before we get back to the race, though, here are Phil and Paul with some of your emails.
Just time to fit a couple in if my voice holds up. From Rob here, what does the team do for you on a mountain climb? Surely once you're on a climb, drafting off, your team is not so important. Well, in fact, Rob, we saw how the Discovery Channel yesterday were riding totally for Lance Armstrong. They did stay on the front, they lifted the pace, and it was their pacemaking that destroyed many of the riders, Paul, before Lance attacked.
Absolutely, but Rob is actually quite right. The drafting effect is not that important on the mountains, but having a teammate alongside you is a big psychological help, as we saw with Lance Armstrong and Jaroslav Popovic. Armstrong went to Popovic and said, lift up the pace, and he used that as a platform to actually attack. And that's why it's good to have a big, strong team in the mountain stages.
And Lance has certainly got that. If they were riding on different teams, you know, they might be Tour winners in their own right. Tim Brooks in Plymouth. This year, all riders are wearing helmets. Is this a rule, or are they wearing them by choice? It is now a rule, actually, and many of them wouldn't wear helmets if they had a choice. Tell us about the rule, Paul.
Well, the rule has actually changed only in the last 12 months because of the advent of the Pro Tour. The Pro Tour says that riders have to wear their helmets on every stage, even if it's a mountaintop finish. And I know that the majority of the feeling in the main field is the riders would be very happy to take them off on a mountaintop finish.
They're quite uncomfortable when you're in hot days on the high mountains, which is the stage like today. So let's get back to the action.
The field here being led, as always, by Team Discovery. Nobody has got back, by the way, after the short descent of the Col de Telegraph. What's going on here?
Pereiro has cracked. Now, this is amazing because on the Col de Telegraph, he's the man who was setting the tempo. He had to sit up and wait for Santiago Botero to come back. Botero has now got his rhythm going, and he's left Pereiro behind.
This is the thing. The body reacts in strange ways, Paul. You've been a good cyclist or a great cyclist. I've just been a cyclist. But you can start the day feeling as rough as you wouldn't believe, saying, I'm never going to see the finish. 2 hours pass by, you're riding like 10 men.
It's known in the sport as having a bad patch. You can have a bad patch at any time during a race. You can have a bad patch for 15 or 20 kilometers. If you have a bad patch at the wrong state of a race, you can see yourself losing the overall classification. I think that's what happened to the man in the turquoise jersey there, the champion of Kazakhstan, Alexander Vinokourov, yesterday. Today, he is back to the form that made him a challenger to Lance Armstrong, and Armstrong will have got this information fed back to him very rapidly, because nowadays, in the days of modern communication, the team managers are watching the same live pictures as we're watching. He'll be able to tell Lance Armstrong, Johan Brunel, exactly what's happening, and he won't be happy to know that now Alexander Vinokourov has got 3 minutes back.
Well, the trouble with communication is everybody knows what's happening these days. The televisions are going and the team cars behind. Then the managers are shouting at the riders to inform them exactly what's happening. So you've got to be extra strong now to beat the men behind, because you can't be out of sight and out of mind. You got a glimpse in the helicopter there how the road is continuing to kick up here. This is Pereiro back at the team car now.
But despite all the communication, despite all the radio communication, when it comes down to it, when it comes down to the crunch, it's the body that still dictates. Because even if the manager now comes over the radio to Pereira and says, lift it up, get back to the lead, you can't do it. There's nothing left.
The body won't do it. That's it. It's curtains. Vinokourov has again been magnificent. Took a hammer. He couldn't match the high speed of the climb yesterday. Now he's dictating his own levels. He's back in his green zone and looking good. This is Santiago Botero. He is in no man's land and driving now. And where is Vinokourov?
Well, he was the last winner. Let's not forget Vinokourov has gone. This is a man possessed here this afternoon. He can find himself completely moving up in the overall classification. If he can conserve the 3-minute advantage, he will leap from 16th place this morning right up into about 4th or 5th place tonight. And that might well be what Lance Armstrong is looking for, to get Ivan Basso, Christophe Moreau and Alejandro Valverde's team to come forward and take a bit of the pressure of the race.
Well, once word gets back to the main field and Lance Armstrong that Alexander Vinokourov has flown on his own, he might get a little bit concerned about this, because Vinokourov has done the ride of his life today after yesterday's battering. He's come out from the start and he's really raced, and he's heading up the Galibier here on his own.
This is the form that he showed us in the Dauphiné Libre, where he showed us that he wasn't afraid at all of these mountains. Now look at that. For the aficionados, by the way, that gearing at the back will probably be around about a 21, 22 tooth sprocket with 39 teeth at the front. That is a very small wheel. It's a very small ratio, and he is spinning. Now let's have a look at Lance Armstrong here. Hincapie looks calm and collected over there. Armstrong, face does not give anything at all away. He's in control. He's looking at the wheel of the riders in front of him. The man behind him there is Jaroslav Popovic. He's the man that will be called upon towards the summit of this climb to turn up the cranks just a little bit. But Armstrong must feel a little bit concerned about Michael Rasmussen, who's only 38 seconds behind him in the overall race.
Well, just looking here towards the back of the field, you get the idea of how the pace has been stepped up now. Sebastian Joly just hanging on. And number 86 here is Chris Horner of the United States. Had a great day today. He was in the move on the previous climb, but he now could be in a little bit of trouble hanging at the back of the group. That's a very select peloton. You need to go 3 minutes up the road to find Alexander Vinokourov. We race around the escarpment of the Col de Galibier, the highest mountain in this part of France.
Well, Vinokourov has really turned up the cranks a fraction here, because a few moments ago he was in the company of Santiago Botero, who is there. He was in the company of Oscar Pereira, and he has blown them both away, and he's setting an incredible pace, still holding on to his gap. In fact, he's just extended it by a few seconds to 3 minutes and 15 seconds. I have to feel now, Phil, that Armstrong must start to react, because he can't let a man like this pull back that much time on one day.
3:15, plus there's a small time bonus to be had on the way to the finish at Moulin-Baron. He's taken 6 seconds already, so he could get 32 seconds in time bonuses, plus the 3 minutes over the field. What does that do?
Could put him right up into between 4th and 5th place, in between Christos Moreau and Alejandro Valverde, completely back in the race. And that would put a big threat onto the shoulders of riders like Basso and Michael Rasmussen. Michael Bogard is a man who has been in this group for a long time. He was there holding on as long as he could to look after the man who's 2nd overall, Michael Rasmussen. But we're now starting to see a serious sorting out in the group. I've got a funny feeling now, Phil, that the pressure is starting to be really cranked up.
Well, what a great battle we are now seeing here. Remember, the Col de Galibier also gives us the big prize, $6,000. That's about £4,500. The Henri Desgrange prize, the man that founded the Tour de France, is always awarded to the first rider over the highest climb of the race route. And this is it, the Col de Galibier. And there's a tribute on the Col de Telegraph to Henri Desgrange.
Bonjour, c'est Christophe Moreau et on se retrouve sur le Tour de France après les pubs.
Le Tour de France on ITV, sponsored by Michelob Ultra.
Boots know that a cut can take weeks, if not months, to fully heal. That's why they've developed plasters using hospital-proven technology that actually speed up the healing process.
Next Wednesday we start flamenco.
Okay, Dad. I'll go change.
That's a nice surprise. Here's another. Tasty corn sausages contain less than 5% fat. Try corn. It might just surprise you.
Cleavage, Mother.
Flat, damaged or greasy hair? There's an answer to every problem. Wash out your hair monsters with Sunsilk, as recommended in Glamour.
My sensitive teeth are running my life. Simple things like coffee or ice cream were so painful. I asked my dentist what I could do about it. He suggested I try Sensitive toothpaste. I switched to Colgate Sensitive. What a difference. It really works.
Colgate Sensitive starts working immediately, targeting the source of the pain for unbeatable pain relief that's clinically proven.
My dentist was right. I don't feel it anymore. I forget I have sensitive teeth. I even had ice cream yesterday.
Colgate Sensitive. Everyday protection for sensitive teeth.
Ask your dentist.
So what's it all about? Do you really want to know? Do you want to get hot? Do you just want to take it all and go?
Broadband, a phone line and digital TV, all for just £30 a month. With a deal this good, you just have to tell everyone. Call 0800 953 0472 to get broadband, a phone line and digital TV for £30 a month. 3 for 30 from Telewest Broadband. Altogether better value.
At B&Q, do more with your kitchen for less than you thought possible. With half-price doors, this complete birch veneer kitchen, including appliances, is under £2,600. And we can help create your dream kitchen with design, planning and installation. Tasty.
Press 6.
Depressing sometimes, buying car insurance through a call centre.
Press 7. Press 1, 5, 7, 2.
Click on to swiftcover.com. We're Britain's only 100% online car insurance. We cut out call centres, so 70% of our customers could save, and you could get a quote in less than a minute. Now, who could argue with that? Swiftcover.com. For swift savings. Click, click, don't cluck, cluck.
Hyundai Get now starts at $5,995. That's £1,000 off, which you can save for a rainy day. Hyundai, a car first, a badge second.
Le Tour de France on ITV, sponsored by Michelob Ultra.
Alexander Vinokourov is past the 5 kilometres to go. The sign over there says 102 years. The Tour de France has been around since 1903, and Vinokourov is the latest of a long line of great men who have ridden this mountain, the Col de Galibier, and he's riding it very, very quickly now. Valois is where the climb starts, and that's at the foot, depending which way you go, of course, of the Col de Telegraph.
One rider is setting the race on fire. It's Alexander Vinokourov. He's got a 42-second advantage over the second rider on the road, and this is him. This is Santiago Botero, the rider from Colombia, who in the past has ridden the World Track Championships, and the King of the Mountains winner here too.
That little group down there now, Paul, is getting to be very, very select indeed. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, about 17 riders, and 4 of them are on the same team, Discovery.
Discovery Channel have certainly bounced back from what happened to them on the slopes of the Col de Schlucht on the road down into Gérardmer last Saturday. I think it was maybe a ploy to lower the defences of everybody else, because as soon as we came into the mountains, everybody rode to absolute and utter perfection. Hincapie here is the man of April, the man of March, the man of the one-day classics in the north of France, the races where the weather is disgusting, the roads are terrible, but here he knows how to excel himself on the roads of the Tour de France and become a climber for his team leader. There's Eddie Mazzolini at the back in the blue jersey of Team Lampre. Levi Leipheimer looking comfortable. 31 is Francisco Mancebo.
42.5 kilometres left to ride. We are getting closer to the top. What a prize this will be, apart from the fact it will earn him quite a lot of money for topping the highest climb of the Tour de France. 6,000 American dollars is the first prize today on top of this mountain. They're not thinking money, they are thinking of glory. These boys, professional cyclists, frankly, never look at the prize list.
The most important thing, as you say, is the legends. That's what the Tour de France is about. The Alps and the Pyrenees create legends of our sport, and we're seeing a legendary ride by Alexander Vinokourov here this afternoon. He is probably the only man from T-Mobile who has bounced back and come out with an aggressive attitude.
Well, this will go a long way to heal the wound after the team was severely criticised by their manager, Walter Godefroot, who said, "My team is no good." And, well, he selected it, so he's going to take some of the blame, I suppose. But to say that in the press about your team, it takes a bit of swallowing. There is the zigzags to the top of the Col de Galibier. Normally, the barren rock is covered in snow for most of the year. We should still see a lot of it around as we go down.
We should see a fair amount of it down. And that year in 2003, by the way, when Alexander Vinokourov won that stage into Gap, he went on to finish in 3rd place overall.
Well, this has been a climb and a half for him, because they started with about 2:45 the Gap. It's now 2:59. It went out to 3 1/4. Vinokourov is riding superbly, but they don't want to push him. He'll get a penalty for that.
The amazing thing about the sport of professional cycling is the fans definitely turn out from all of the different nations. We've seen Danes, we've seen Americans, we've seen the French and the Belgians and the Germans at the side of the road. But they encourage each and every one of these riders, because most of them know what sort of pain they're going through. There's a Kazakhstan flag at the side of the road.
It's the first one I've seen, Paul. The flag of Kazakhstan. It has a bright yellow sun in the middle of that turquoise flag, and that'll give him some support now.
It will give him some support now, because he's probably carrying the hopes of a nation on his shoulders as he gets slowly but surely to the summit of this climb. Unfortunately, though, once he gets to the top of the climb, he's still got 40 kilometres to go to the finish. Fortunately, most of those are downhill.
Slip in the top gear, take a few risks, I think, is the order of the day. And he should do 40 kilometres, which is 25 miles, in probably around 40 minutes today.
He will hammer down the slopes of this climb away from the Galibier. He goes down to the top of the Col de Lautaret, and then it's a very fast descent. Not such a technical descent once he gets to the Lautaret, where he'll be able to touch speeds of pretty close to 70 or 80 kilometres an hour.
Just over 1 kilometre remains of the climb of the Col de Galibier. He's going to win the prize. He's going to be first over the top. Botero was with him at the bottom. So too was Pereiro. They got dispatched. These are the determined riders now of Discovery, while all of the others still follow Lance Armstrong. He hasn't made a move, but there's going to be one terrific chase once we get over this mountain.
It'll be a huge chase, and I wonder if Alejandro Valverde will get his teammates up to the front. He's got Francisco Mancebo in the group, because if they could ever bring back this man, Valverde would be the great man to take out the sprint. 2 stage wins back-to-back, but they're going to have to do something extraordinary special to catch this man from Kazakhstan. He's looking now. There it is. There's the banner which indicates 1 kilometre to go.
1,000 metres to top the climb. He'll be profiting by the tune of 6,000 extra dollars. That's a bonus plus the prize as well. He'll do very well for the team, but he's more thinking now of doing very well for himself. He's got 40 kilometres downhill. The hill has eased a little bit here, and still they paint the flags of Norway on the rocks, although it's actually a big flag, as Vinokourov of Kazakhstan, the champion of his country, for the first time in his career. He's only ever won 1 stage of the Tour de France in his life. He's finished 3rd overall to Lance Armstrong. Armstrong has always said how worried he was about this rider, but yesterday I believe Armstrong must have thought he'd finished him off.
Well, I think he put enough time between himself and Alexander Vinokourov as he wanted to, but today Alexander Vinokourov is grabbing back about 3 minutes. This is back in the team cars, and this is one of the teammates of Ivan Basso. I think it's Carlos Sastre who will pick his way back up through there to try and hand a drink over to his team captain. Now at the back of the group here, I'm looking through to see if I can see the Lotto jersey of Cadel Evans, and I couldn't see it.
Well, they're saying he's in there. We've had no camera to prove it or not prove it, so let's hope he is, because he's the top Australian rider at the moment. As now the road narrows and he climbs to the summit. Alexander Vinokourov, as he races towards the summit of the top of the Col de Glibier. The trees on the horizon don't grow because they're people just trying to get a look at the race going by. They're cutting their way through now, and the adrenaline must be pumping through him. 1/3 of a kilometre to go.
How happy is he going to be when he gets over to the summit of this climb? The people have turned out. Most of these people actually camped out last night so they could witness the Tour de France going over its high spot, the Col du Galibier. And this man, who started off his life in a French team, Team Casino, a little shake of the hands there. He knows he's got himself to the summit, but I wonder if he knows just how close behind him Santiago Botero is.
He might, but he's over the top, 1st place, and he wins the Henri Grand Special Prize of the year for the highest spot of the Tour de France. And look at this now, Michael Rasmussen. He is turning out to be one superstar, this boy. We didn't see him go, but he's gone.
Well, Armstrong dare not let Michael Rasmussen take too much of an advantage, because Rasmussen is only 38 seconds behind Armstrong in the overall classification. Here is Botero now, whipping his way through the crowd. He is thinking about trying to make contact with Vinokourov at the front, while behind there's a little bit of drama coming into this race for Armstrong.
Rasmussen has begun to believe in himself. He's a king of the mountains so far, but he's only second, 38 seconds behind Lance Armstrong. And there's bonuses at the finish today. Here he comes, 31 years of age he is, but he's a newcomer to the world of road racing, a former world mountain bike champion. Michael Rasmussen is something else this tour. He has found legs that we've never seen before. He is racing to the summit now, currently in 3rd place. He's showing Christophe Moreau why he needn't above it for the earlier points.
Absolutely, but what he's also doing is riding away from Lance Armstrong. Armstrong won't panic, though, because, Phil, there's 40 kilometres to go from the summit of this climb all the way down into Briançon, and Armstrong has still got 3 very strong teammates around him, so he'll be able to chase down this man. But if you remember a couple of days ago, when he escaped on the road into Mulhouse, Jens Voigt and Christophe Moreau couldn't pull him back.
And it's worth remembering that right now there's about 15 riders left in the peloton, the select 15 boys, right up the slopes there, in amongst the crowd. Somewhere is Michael Rasmussen. Sitting here at the back of the race is number 23, which is Bobby Julich, and he again confirms that this is one American with some good form this year, riding alongside his team captain Ivan Basso. He's staying in a top flight position in the Tour de France. Cadel Evans is also down there, riding very, very well now. Looking into this group, Leonardo Pipoli is the boy in yellow. He again is sending a big surprise for his team. This man, the Dane, and there's all the Danish countrymen, they've all pulled on the polka dot jerseys he gained a couple of days before the rest day. He comes up to the summit, he'll go over in 3rd place, but more importantly, this man could be the next leader of the Tour de France.
Well, let's see what the clock stops at there. It's 2:24 for this man who has a 38-second deficit on Lance Armstrong, and Christophe Moreau, despite the fact that Rasmussen has gone, is going out to try and get himself a few more points. But I think we're going to be in for a fairly hairy chase on the descent of this mountain, because as we cross the line there, it's 2:42, so he's pulled back a good 20 seconds on Lance Armstrong.
Bonjour, je suis Alexandre Vinokourov. On sera après les petits pubs.
Botero will see occasionally Alexander Vinokourov. We'll see him, he nearly caught him. There he is. Alexander Vinokourov in the sights of Santiago Botero. Got rid of him on the way up, coming together on the way down.
Well, he wiped out 45 seconds there very rapidly, and he did it at exactly the right time, because he's just now coming into the summit of the Col du Lautaret. If you were to turn right there, you would head across to Grenoble. If you turn left as rapidly as Santiago Botero did, you're heading straight down now to Briançon.
If you turn right, of course, you climb the Col du Lautaret. This is the best way they're going now. The crowd at the crossroads there have been waiting an awful long time to see the Tour riders. You heard the cheers. That's a very dizzy shot, isn't it, as they make that sharp right. This is a big road now as they race down into Briançon. Then they go almost bypass the town and circle back into it. And there's a huge crowd waiting for them. It's not our regular finish in Briançon. We very often finish uphill. This is a flat finish.
As we look back here, there's Oscar Sevilla coming up. You can see these. There's Roberto Heras coming up as well.
Way down.
You can see these riders putting the newspaper up the front of their jerseys. Well, newspapers are made out of wood, and wood is one of the best conductors in the world, and it actually stops the cold going through these very light jerseys the riders wear in these mountain stages.
Paul Sherwin would never have known that if he hadn't majored in newspaper technology at Manchester University. I thought you'd all like to know that.
Ah, thanks, Phil. Good man. Hincapi on the front, doing a great job. And the whole of the team are moving up to the front here to do what they can to make sure they limit the advantage there of the two riders off the front, Alexander Vinokourov and Santiago Botero. Great job by George Hincapi today.
Hincapi's an outstanding man. He's the only rider on the team. He's been on the team for every one of Lance Armstrong's victories. He's had the opportunity to be offered big time with the big teams, and who would probably delivered him some big wins for himself. He said no. He stayed with Lance throughout his career.
But at a race like this, at the Tour de France, I don't think George Hincapi actually thinks about his own personal glory.
I agree.
He doesn't think about winning individual stages. He's dedicated to one thing, as are the 8 other riders on Discovery Channel. He is dedicated to riding for Lance Armstrong. This is rather sad for the Basque supporters, because this is Iban Mayo coming up to the summit of the climb. He's lost himself more than a quarter of an hour.
Look at the faces of Armstrong now and of Rasmussen, and all the pain is being caused by Armstrong's team. Jan Ullrich there trying to get some lunch down, but it's being interrupted by this high speed. Everybody's scrabbling for wheels here now, and it's all Team Discovery.
Well, it's also Il Baleares moving up to give a bit of a hand, maybe for Alejandro Valverde. Oh, this is a bit of a problem here. Now, this is one of the transponders that all the riders are forced to wear by the organisation, and that transponder there is looking rather loose. Now, if that transponder was to flick up, it would go right into the wheel, the back wheel of Alexander Vinokourov. Now, he dare not stop here to change his bike, because if he does, then there's no way that he'll catch back up to Santiago Botero. This is a massive risk he's going to have to take, and just hope that that doesn't come out, because he does not deserve to lose the stage like this. Look at that. You can see it just bobbing about. And what is happening? It's actually flicking into the wheels and the spokes of the wheel and getting flicked back out again. He certainly doesn't want to have to change his machine at this stage of the game, because these riders, although they're holding on to a big advantage over the peloton, if he had to stop for any reason at all, he would see the race stage disappear from him. I'm not sure. Well done. Well done, that man. I tell you what, that man deserves a beer this evening, because moving along at 60 kilometers an hour and cutting off that transponder, he could have lost 4 fingers. I've seen riders in the past try to adjust the quick release lever at the front or adjust their brake at the back, and they've put their fingers into the wheels. Now, don't try doing that when the spokes are going round at 45 miles an hour. Whoa, well done. This is the autobus, as they call it. This is the group of riders just surviving. Now, they are looking at an awful long way to go to the finish. They won't be eliminated today. It's still a long way down to the line. Look at the faces here of all of these guys who know that the only thing left in their legs this afternoon is to get down to the finish line and to get down into Briançon.
30 years to Thévenet, indeed it is. He won the Tour de France, Bernard Thévenet, in 1975. That was the first time, by the way, the Tour de France finished on the Champs-Élysées. It's finished there every year since, and Bernard commentates here for French television. The face here is Santiago Botero. Alexander Vinokourov, even when he suffers, this man never looks bad. As they race now behind our commentary position, we could just about see them by the television camera motorbikes, which means that they will now make the sharp turns to line up for the finish. They're running down the river here in Besançon.
Well, they are still pushing. Neither rider actually shirking the pace, and I think that goes back to the fact that they spent a couple of years together. They were on the same team. They don't want to play any dirty tricks on each other. They will ride it down and sprint it out man for man. They will share the pacemaking up until the final moment. You can see Santiago Botero is seriously grimacing in second position there. These riders have made a great effort this afternoon. They are looking now at these kilometers as they tick by, and the kilometers are ticking by at 1 minute and 4 seconds. That's 60 kilometers an hour, and still they are not desisting because they know that Armstrong's group is closing back on them to 1 minute and 30 seconds.
The last time we came here in 2000, it was the rider in second position who won, Santiago Botero. We're now looking for the 2 kilometer point, and these two are looking for the 1 kilometer point now as we race into the town. And Santiago Botero trying to be a man to do the double. He has yo-yoed on and off the leaders all day. He finally got back to Alexander Vinokourov, and they have come off the mountains together. They are 1:35 ahead of Lance Armstrong and his group, so they are taking time back. But right now, they're more concerned with who gets the win.
That's what the game is all about here as they take this left-hand bend. They're lining themselves up for the finishing straight. There's a roundabout to go through. Then there you can see the Flamme Rouge over the finishing line. That will indicate there's 1,000 meters to go. And once they get under that, the road will bend round a fraction. But they know now that the race is won. They know the race is in the bag. But who is going to take it? I have to think it's going to be Mr. number 19.
Well, what a wonderful crowd here. 2 great riders in the true history of the Tour de France today. Briançon has seen all the finest winners over its history, the 32nd time that the Tour has finished here, and these 2 boys have lifted the reputation in the mountains. It's a shame that one of them has to lose now, and it looks as though Vinokourov is going to manoeuvre Santiago Botero into the lead. They're both okay sprinters. They're far from being the big sprinters that we normally see, so it's much more difficult for them. Vinokourov, he should be working at a casino. His face never tells you anything. He takes a look at Botero. Botero is just looking at his front wheel here, waiting for him to make the move. He just keeps staring at that wheel. And the minute that Vinokourov jumps, Botero will go with him. There's a tense moment. He's easing him slightly to the centre. They're now bringing up the speed to the line. Vinokourov is about to make his move, and Botero, I think, is ready for him. This is going to be an amazing finish. We're almost on the finishing line here, as now the puffing and blowing of Alexander Vinokourov, and I don't know if Botero has got it. No, he hasn't. Vinokourov is coming clear, and he's going to get a well-deserved victory here. The man of the day, the man of the Tour today, and he is the winner on the line. Well done, Alexander Vinokourov.
What a superb move there by Alexander Vinokourov, but a very tactical move too. And I'll tell you one thing, they lost a little bit of time over that last 500 meters, but Vinokourov gets himself the 20-second time bonus, but I think he was really only worried about the sprint at the end of the day. And look at this, Armstrong's troops are still leading them up to the finishing line. On the front, 4 riders from Team Discovery Channel. Armstrong is very much there in 4th place. You can just see Acevedo swinging off there. Paolo Salvadelli now taking it up. George Hincapie right up there as well. Everybody very happy, I think, Phil, to be in this group here this afternoon. It's not going to be a fast sprint, this, but I would suspect that Alejandro Valverde shouldn't be too very far away from it. Hincapie takes up the pacemaking. Armstrong is looking very attentive there.
Well, as Hincapie is still trying to finish this off for Lance Armstrong, there's still a 3rd place bonus at stake, which would a little bit nullify the win bonus of Vinokourov. Even Rasmussen's trying to get in now. The white jersey of Alessandro Valverde is in a bad place. He's tucked off to the right of our picture. Hincapie coming now as they go through now. Is Valverde going to get himself out? He's chosen Jan Ullrich's wheel to burst forth. This is going to be a finish for Lance Armstrong. As he comes up to the line, he sits up and he lets Christophe Moreau take the third. I think it's Basso or Bobby Julie. Basso, I think, gets fourth.
Well, Alexander Vinokourov put in a great sprint all the way to the line today, not realising that he was the only one in it. Botero knew he was beaten and had long since conceded. In fact, there was enough of a gap that the commissaires put in a time split between them, and with the bonuses he gained along the way, Vinokourov ended up with 1:45 over Armstrong and the chasing group, which included Ullrich, Klöden, Basso and the rest. Well, Vino scored a hat-trick today, stage winner, Combativité prize for the most aggressive rider, and €5,000 in the souvenir Henri de Grange for being first over the Galibier. A good day's work, albeit a day late when Armstrong could afford to let it go.
Oui, c'est vrai, mais bon, je n'étais pas les bons jours hier. J'ai dit que je vais attaquer aujourd'hui. Surtout, je les donne peut-être le moral à l'équipe de mobile pour attaquer dans les Pyrénées.
Et Vino, vous étiez avec Santiago Botero, vous le connaissez très bien. J'imagine que vous savez que vous allez gagner l'étape comme vous étiez avec lui cet après-midi.
Bon, tu sais jamais sûr, mais bon, je savais que je suis un peu plus fort dans le sprint que lui. J'ai dit je vais les tenter maximum pour gagner cette étape.
Behind Vino, in fact behind pretty much everyone, was a very large autobus today, and in it Tom Burnham and Robbie McEwen. Not in that group though was yesterday's yellow jersey Jens Voigt. He came in alone and in a bit of a state, nearly 47 minutes down. Sadly for him, and for the rest of us actually, because he's such a great bloke, that was outside the elimination time, so Jens Voigt is out of the Tour, and so is Kevin Hulsmans of Quick Step, who was another 45 seconds behind him. Now, there are a couple of changes to report in the general classification. You saw Christophe Moreau beat the Discovery boys in the sprint for third place, and the bonus seconds he picked up there move him ahead of Ivan Basso into third overall. Santiago Botero has moved into the top six. The time gaps to Ullrich, Klöden and Landis remain the same, but Vinokourov is now up to 12th, 4:47 behind Armstrong.
The way your team has transformed itself, quite extraordinary. How do you explain that since Saturday and the way they've been riding the last 2 days?
You know, Saturday, I mean, a lot of people talked about Saturday and the disappointment that we saw. But Saturday is very different than what we see now, and I think the boys were caught by surprise then. I think we were too confident. We probably worked too much in the first week. But these climbs that we're doing now are very different than the climbs we did on Saturday. And on the contrary, I mean, all of the questions that say, how can the team turn around so quickly? We could also ask the same questions about the people that were in the front on Saturday. Why aren't they on the front now? So I think the boys were so focused on getting through the first week and then getting to the Alps. All of a sudden, this day popped up in the middle that was a lot harder than they expected. And they were caught off guard, and guard was down, and they got popped, and it happened. It wasn't pretty. I didn't like it. Nobody liked it, but they're pros. I mean, they're all champs, and they were more upset than I was or Johan was, and you should have seen their faces that night. They were clearly disappointed.
Well, looking at his face, I think Lance feels like he's had enough questions on that subject, but Chris, his team really is still the topic of the Tour.
I think it's the strongest team I've ever seen, never mind in this Tour de France, and it must be very, very comfortable for him going into these stages that he's surrounded by people who can do a job like that. George Hincapie literally led it over the Col de Galibier.
Are we clutching at straws looking ahead to the Pyrenees, or is there still a chance that this race could be up for grabs?
There's some nasty stages to come. Stage 15 particularly sees them go up a number of climbs all day with another summit finish. That'll be hard to control, and if we can get riders to behave the way Vinokourov did today, well, yeah, I think we've got some more excitement to come.
All right, well, I think you know the end of...